Hey guys, Julian here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make Afterlife Melodic Techno like KAS. We're going to be talking about their EP on Afterlife and just in general, a lot of tips that I picked up on for making this style of techno. As usual, you can get the full project files, samples, MIDI, presets, everything from this video is available right at the top of the description on my Bandcamp, and if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. And yeah, let's dive in. So we're at 123 BPM, pretty standard tempo for the style of track. The first sound here is the lead. So here's the lead MIDI. There's two things happening here. You'll notice there's this melody. Just that. But then underneath that, there's this sort of like polyrhythm happening where basically you have this thing. You can see this thing just sort of restarts like that. Like it just happens every 3/16 notes or every 2/16 notes, I guess you could say. But then this pattern is very rigid and like 1 bar, 2 bars, 3 bars, you know. So it's creating this very interesting rhythmic juxtaposition of those two things happening at once. And yeah, it creates a lot of groove inside of the lead. But yeah, for this actual like melody pattern, I'll just talk about, it's pretty simple. These are all just really straightforward notes in the scale of F minor. That's the key we're in. So you can see like it's F, another F, G, which is just the 9th, G sharp, which is the minor 3rd, and then C, which is the 5th. So it's really just 4 notes, and then this low droning note is just playing F. Now for the sound with this one, it's made with analog. You can see we have a square wave and a saw wave. Going into a low pass filter, you can see the low pass has an envelope on it, so that's giving it that pluck. We've also got the amp envelope set like this. I've got a bit of vibrato. And yeah, then after that we have this auto filter. So this is actually here because, as you can see, we have a little bit of noise coming out of the synth. You can hear that as well. And if you don't cut out this low end, you can hear there's a lot of like nasty low end happening with the noise that we don't really want. So I'm just cutting that. And yeah, and when you do it like right after the synth like this, it just makes it so that the rest of the chain isn't going to have like a bunch of nasty low end. So like we're not getting that low end in the echo and the reverb and into the drum bus. It's getting rid of it here, and then we're not going to have that problem for the rest of the chain. After that we have the echo and reverb, so these are both just giving the sound space. You can hear this echo works really nicely with that pattern that we have going on between the main lead part and then that little like plucky note underneath. And yeah, then we just have a bit of drum bus to kind of fatten the sound up a bit. Here's without that. And then with it, you can hear the difference. And then we just have this high pass filter here at the end of the chain, just making sure to cut out any extra low end there. And then finally, I just have a compressor side chaining this to the kick. And yeah, that's it for the lead. Then we have the pad, which is really simple. This is just playing an F minor chord, and then there's another F added up there. This is just meant to add like some kind of musical background to the track. If I turn this off, it feels a bit like we're listening to the intro or something, but then when you turn this on, it really fills out the whole track nicely. And so with this one, it's made using Operator. Operator is really good for making pads. FM synthesis in general can make you just some really interesting pads for this style because you want something that's kind of like soft, but still with a lot of movement and kind of texture. And FM synthesis is perfect for that. And the way we created that here is by using these 3 oscillators. You can see they're all 3 just sine waves. Detuned a little bit. I've got the chorus pitch on this one up to 4, and then on these 2 it's up to 2. So this one is a whole 2 octaves up, or actually just 1 octave, I'm pretty sure, is where 4 is from 2. And then yeah, those are just going into a bandpass filter, and then I have an LFO here on the actual filter frequency. So just kind of giving that some real like subtle motion. So this isn't just sitting in the same place the whole time. Then we just have a bit of chorus and some reverb to give the sound some space and some stereo width. Then I have the saturator just to kind of beef it up a little bit. You know, give it a little bit more warmth. And then finally, we just have a compressor side chaining this to the kick, and then a high pass filter cutting out the lows. And then we have this little vocal stab, which sounds like this. So it's just this little sound that I took, and then I just... Yeah, there's the original. So we just had that playing like that there, and then I just chopped it here so it goes wow, wow. So yeah, this is like really simple, you know, it's just got a little bit of reverb, a little bit of a high pass filter, but this is one of those sort of like extra background elements that you may overlook on your first go trying to do this, you know. It'd be easy to make the track like this without this vocal and think that this is good, but listen to... You're having that wow every single time that you know is going to come every 2 bars. It creates kind of a more hypnotic rhythm, and it's going to make your track feel more professional because now you have something happening right immediately at every second, as well as something that's happening kind of slower, and it's all coming together to make the whole track feel really full. So yeah, this is definitely an important layer, even though it is like background, still it's very important for just kind of filling out the mix. Then we have the kick. And yeah, this is your pretty standard sort of Afterlife style melodic techno kick. You know, the way we made this one is just by layering this kick. Just a nice, like, punchy, fat, deep kick with this one. And you can see this one, this clicky kick here. Here's the original sample. So it's just one of those super clicky, more progressive style kicks. And then I've just cut out the lows. So we're just getting that sitting on top of the main kick. And yeah, and then I just have that going into a bit of saturation to kind of beef it up, and it also glues the 2 kicks together. Here's without the saturator. And then with it. So you can hear it really helps to even them out and make the kicks sound like one. And yeah, then we have the bass line, which sounds like this. So this is a pretty simple bass line. You can see it's literally just like a half note. It just goes like that. And then it's just playing one note, it's just playing F. This is part of the progressive thing with this style of music, is like, I've noticed these guys typically when they make these kind of tracks will just do like, you know, in the actual main track like this, like maybe they'll have a big part at the beginning which has a whole different chord progression to it and stuff, but then typically you'll have like in the main part, just one note like this, just simple chugging along. And the reason for this is because when you just have one note, different notes are going to have different, like, responses with the bass. You can hear this. I'm playing C, and then F, and then see how F has so much more bass? So if we're bouncing around, like, let's say it's like... all of a sudden, we started on F, and that was fine, but then when we went down to C sharp, the bass is kind of weird there. So this is why just having like the one bass note works really well with these progressive tracks. It gives you just this really steady, fat, solid bass and foundation to your track. So yeah, and then for the sound with this one, it's pretty straightforward. It's just 2 saw waves. I've got the second one down an octave, and then those are just going into a low pass filter with an envelope. And that's how you get that, like, just simple, deep, plucky, fat bass like this. And yeah, and then we just have a bit of chorus as well as this bass mono here. So here's without these. And then with them, you can hear the chorus makes the sound a bit smoother and a bit deeper, which is really nice. The problem is that after the chorus, you're going to have like this weird stereo image happening. You really don't want your bass to be in stereo like this. So I'm just taking this utility. I'm turning on the bass mono, and now we can still get the wide, you know, big chorusy sound, but then the low end frequencies that matter are going to be in mono. And then there's this drum bus here, which is just fattening it up a bit. You can see it's on the hard setting, and I've got the transients turned up, so it's just really like fattening this up a bit. Tune that really quick. There we go. I've also got the boom up a little bit just to kind of make this like... You can hear it gives it a little bit fatter low end. And then we just have this EQ in here cutting out a little bit of room for the kick. And then I have the kick and the bass in a group together with just a bit of saturation. I'll just talk about this quickly. It's something I do in almost every video, but it really makes it sound just a lot stronger because you're taking your kick and your bass and you're putting them into saturation at once. And when you do that, I'll just show you. Here's without it. And then with it. It's like, it just makes them fit in so well together. You're really like, it really just takes the two low ends and like plugs them in. That's kind of how I envision it. It's like, you know, before you do this, you have like a plug and you have like a socket. And, you know, they look like they fit together, but they're not fitting together yet. This is the thing that's going to plug them in together, essentially. Then we have the hi-hats, which sound like this. So we just have two here. We have this main like 16th note shaker sort of hi-hat thing. You can see I played with the velocity on that a little bit to give it kind of more of like a groove. And then we have the main hi-hat, which is just made with two layers. We have this one, more of like the mid-range punch, and this one, which is more of like the bright highs. And yeah, you can hear like either one of them on their own is just not quite enough. Like the mid-range one on its own, just it's too much just mid-range, but the high-end one on its own doesn't really have the body to it. It just has the like. So then you put these together, and it's a really easy way to get the best of both worlds. But that's the key with layering. Is I think a lot of times people think that layering two hi-hats together means finding like two very powerful hi-hat samples and putting them together to make one God mode hi-hat or whatever you might think it is. But really what it is you need to find two sounds that complement each other. Like this one doesn't have the high end. Like the frequencies that are in this shaker just don't exist inside of this hi-hat sample. And then the frequencies that are in the hi-hat sample don't exist inside of the shaker. So they're not fighting for the same space. And yeah, and then I just have those going into a little bit of reverb. Just kind of gives it a little bit more atmosphere and kind of helps the hi-hat fit into the track. Then we have the ride, which is really simple. It's just a standard sort of techno ride. And then I have it going through this echo here. And this is creating that like wide sound you hear. Typically you want your ride to be a bit wider. You wouldn't just have it like straight down the center like you would with your hi-hats or something like that. So here's without this and with it. And this helps to kind of set the ride apart. Now we're hearing the ride in a completely different part of the mix, so it can kind of stand on its own rather than having it have to fight with the hi-hats. The other thing with this ride pattern is it's a little bit more interesting. Usually, you know, you would just have like just straight eighth notes like that. This one's a little bit more groovy, but if you look at it, it's actually the opposite of the bass pattern. Because you can see the bass pattern goes on the 16th notes here, and then the ride goes on the 8th note, and then the ride is on the 16th notes here, but then the bass is on the 8th note. So keep in mind, like, while you're hearing this whole track, it's not just the fact that you're hearing all these individual elements at once, but listen to just this pattern with the ride and bass. Like, just between those two elements interacting, there's a lot of energy, and this is what you need to keep in mind, is like, not just like, you know, every individual element sounding cool, but just having like that energy happening and that synergy between different elements in your track. And then the last thing that we have here inside of the percussion are these little noise stabs and this little operator pluck. It's that little and then the little pow, pow, pow. So for the noise stabs, these are both made using operator. They're both just white noise going into filters essentially. So for the noise stabs, this just kind of comes, you know, every now and then. It just gives you a little. It's almost like, you know, you have like a reverb. reversing or something like after your main hi-hat. This is just like that vocal. It's one of those things that's really easy to overlook, but having this in the background is adding a lot to your track, even if you may not realize it, like, or even know that it's there when you're listening to the track. If you take all this kind of stuff out, it's just not going to sound right. But yeah, so this one is just a little bit of white noise. It has a bit of attack on it. That's how you get that like it's kind of going into the sound. And then I have this going into a high pass filter actually. And then the high pass is being automated. So that's how we make it sound a little bit different every time. It makes it so you're getting like, yeah, a slightly different sound every time that you hear it. And then we just have this erosion here. That's what gives it that kind of crispiness. Here's without it. And then with it. Kind of helps to give it a bit more texture. Then we just have the reverb, which is just this really short little like, just gives it some atmosphere. And then finally we just have a bit of drum bus to beef it up a little. And then we have the little operator pluck. And so this is also just sort of adding some little extra background percussive hits like this. The way this one's made is just, again, it's white noise inside of operator here, and then this one's going into a bandpass filter. The last one was a high pass, but this one's a bandpass, and then we have an envelope on there, so it's making it. That's how you get the clicks, is because the envelope creates that little like happening with the sound. And then I also have this hard shaper on here. Which is making this hit even more. And then we have this LFO here on the filter cutoff, just a little bit, just so it's kind of changing. It brings a lot of life to the sound. And yeah, then we just have this short reverb, just to give it a little bit of atmosphere. I have a drum bus, which is making it hit a bit more. And also this helps when you're working with white noise to make it sound more like an actual percussion and less like just noise. And then we have a high pass filter. And yeah, and then on the group of all that percussion, we just have a little bit of a saturator. So this is just like with the kick and bass. Again, it's kind of like you have a plug and you have a socket, but they're not really like plugged in together yet. There's a little bit of confusion with the wiring. The saturator is the thing that's going to plug it in and make it all fit in perfectly like that. So here's without it. You can hear the percussion's a little uneven. It doesn't all hit as hard. It doesn't all have the same texture. But then when you turn this on, and it all comes together really nicely. You can hear everything individually, and everything is, you know, powerful enough. And yeah, so that is me for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe, and let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get the full project files, samples, MIDI, presets, all of that from this video right at the top of the description on my Bandcamp. And if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. Thank you so much, guys, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.